Hello, I'm Dr. Harold Duncan. I'm a licensed professional counselor and licensed marriage and family therapist in Dallas, Texas. Thank you for joining us for this series on emotional intelligence. I'd like to tell you about two websites that you can access at any time. One is PrestonPlaceCounseling.com. The other is HaroldDuncan.com. Would love for you to look at the articles and the newsletters and the film clips that are on those websites, and hopefully you can use those in some way that will be very practical to you, to members of your family, or to your friends. You may access and use that information without any permissions necessary. The first clip that you are going to look at is an introduction to emotional intelligence. For years, we have known that for success in life, emotional intelligence is much more important than academic or intellectual intelligence. Over the next few minutes, you will learn why that is the case. Thank you for joining us. But thanks again for being here. I'm really looking forward to this. We've got a lot of ground to cover, so we're going to get started. So what we're talking about tonight is introduction to emotional intelligence. I'm going to be referencing several books, one of which is a book called Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman. I'll show you the jacket of that in just a few minutes, but that's where this first quote comes from. It's actually a quote from Aristotle. Aristotle has said, "Anyone can become angry. That is easy. But to be angry with the right person to the right degree at the right time for the right purpose and in the right way, that is not easy." When we talk about intelligence, historically, and we all know this, there really has been one way to measure intelligence, especially in academia, and that is IQ, your intelligence quotient. And so when we're in school and we take the intelligence tests and whatever is available, then we are graded or we are sorted or we are seated sometimes on the basis of IQ. But it doesn't translate into the real world. What about the real world? How does that work? Well, not so well, because we all know people who are highly intelligent and just don't seem to be able to function well in the real world, or, for example, in the workplace. Historically, the workplace has been no place for emotions. That's one of the things that at least in my generation, we've grown up hearing: you leave your emotions at home. That's the emotion, and so in the workplace and in other areas of our lives, we really don't know what to do with strong emotions such as anger, such as fear or anxiety. Even positive, what we consider to be more positive emotions, such as happiness or elation or accomplishment or joy or just real ecstasy. So, as Aristotle saw it, the problem is not with emotionality, but with the appropriateness of emotion and with the expression of emotion. The big question, how can we bring intelligence to our emotions? And for most of human history, I think this has not been a very well considered question. It's been a question that probably has not been asked. Why is it important for us to even talk about this evening? Well, there are several reasons, and I'll just talk about a few here to begin with. Why is it important to us? Many of you are familiar with a book called The Road Less Traveled. It's a very, very important book that was written, 24 years ago, 1988, by Dr. M. Scott Peck. The very opening line of that book, as many of you know, is "Life is difficult." He goes on to explain that once we accept the fact
that life is difficult, then it becomes less difficult. We create additional difficulty for ourselves when we think that life should not be difficult, and when we dwell on or obsess on how unfair life is, or how poorly we have been treated, or how unfortunate our lot in life is. And according to Dr. Peck, as soon as we accept the reality that life is difficult, it becomes less difficult. So I would add to that not only is life difficult, but that people are difficult. Of course we are. Relationships are difficult. Marriages are difficult. Divorce is difficult. Remarriage is difficult. Families are difficult. Parenting is difficult. Intimacy is difficult. Aging is difficult. And I don't want to leave the impression that these are insurmountably difficult, or that these are unbearably difficult, because I don't believe that that's the case. But we have to let go of some of the childhood or less mature fantasies that life should not be difficult, that once we have climbed this mesa, then it kind of levels out, and our lives then become smooth and without much turmoil. And that's important to me. I used to think that. And then I learned in some very painful ways that that's not the case. At the same time that life is difficult, life can also be wonderful. It can be rewarding and enriching and fulfilling and much, much more. The same can be said for people. People can be wonderful, and relationships can be wonderful, and marriage can be wonderful. Not so sure about divorce. Families and children, intimacy, excuse me, and even aging can be a wonderful part of our lifespan process.
Thank you for joining us for that video clip. I hope that it was helpful to you. Just one reminder, our two websites are PrestonPlaceCounseling.com and HaroldDuncan.com. On the Preston Place website, all of the video clips will be accessible as well. The next video that you'll be seeing is an introduction to emotions. For years, emotions have been a vitally important part of our lives, but emotions are often not very well understood. So we're going to talk about some facts about emotions that will help them become more usable and more practical in our everyday lives and in our relationships. Thank you again.